As an addition to what Anna said, as for me putting some emphasis on societal challenges and opportunities to civilian drone proliferation, I will draw some insights on what has been the global drone use during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the kind of elements that I will bring to the table, I hope that they are of interest to you, but they stem from the realization that obviously the COVID-19 pandemic has been posing a lot of crisis management scenarios. And also I will be focusing on drone use to address specific issues to which drones were understood as being a solution for. The issue, the general background for this presentation is, as you see here in the bottom, the Regular project. So it's a large project that we have at the PRIO that has been funded by the Research Council of Norway, and that deals with the integration of drones in the Norwegian and European airspaces. And so the research that I'm presenting here it happens within that framework. And the results that I'll be bringing for the issues that deal with drone use for COVID-19 related problems has been published in an article in Global Policy, and this was published literally last night. So I will be putting the links in the chat afterwards. A final element that we could see here in my title is 3D security. So I will be talking a little bit about what is this 3D security and what are the issues that it brings. So 3D security has to do with the understanding that the proliferation of drones in the civilian airspace brought a new way of understanding space. So when we think in terms of drones have brought volume to the way that we understand public space, and this is something that has implications for crisis management, surveillance, police operations, etc. So this three-dimensional conception of space has led some people to talk about the importance of thinking in terms of securing the volume rather than securing the area that used to be the paradigm before the advent of civilian drones. And this is something that poses safety issues and security issues. We've been in this workshop so far, we've been talking extensively about the potentialities of drone technology when it comes to integration with other systems. The presentation by Nick, for example, showing how all these different sources of communication, how they can be brought together to really facilitate the operational responses to crisis. I want to kind of to bring an additional perspective to this, which is to argue that there are, out of this utilization of drones, there are some safety and some security issues that are not always considered, okay, for a number of reasons, and we can talk more about that. So when we talk about safety issues, we talk mostly about the presence of drones in the vicinity to airports and other critical areas. The issue of drones close to airports is a persisting problem. It happens on a daily basis, and we still haven't had, fortunately, a big accident caused by a drone. We've had airports closed, anywhere between a few minutes to more than one day, and this is an issue that is still there. Other safety issues are the difficulty in distinguishing between cooperative and non-cooperative drones, and also the difficulty in countering potential threats. And this is something that I'll talk more about. When it comes to security issues, we talk about the potential criminal activity, drug trafficking, smuggling, industrial espionage, harassment, etc. Potential espionage, and also potential politically motivated activity. So not only terrorism, but all the sorts of political motivated acts. It should be said that all these security issues that I have listed here have been verified, and have been verified in Europe and in many European countries, if not all. So when it comes to the specific drone used during the pandemic, I will be so kind of I will now kind of basically try to give an overview of what we found in terms of drone use during the pandemic, so that we can afterwards have a discussion precisely on the challenges and opportunities that this technological platform brings. Um, uh, just before proceeding on that, I would also like to draw your attention to the problem. So kind of when we list here safety issues, and we talk about the difficulty in countering potential threats, we have issued a report 1.5 years ago, where we go very deep with when it comes to counter UAS technology. We talk about the lack of efficiency of the vast majority of the systems, operational hurdles that take place in uh, real crisis scenarios, a law lag that exists, so that basically in many countries legislation and regulation does not really allow the deployment of some of these technologies, and also the potential safety and security threat that comes with it. So when we talk about drone uses during the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen mostly three uses, and I will call it technological fixes, because these were understood to be a technological solution to specific problems. Okay, and drones in civilian settings have been found to be a very good solution to three kinds of problems. One of them has been the disinfection of surfaces, in particular in the first phases of the pandemic. And we've seen this in Europe, but also in pretty much around the world. We've seen efforts for cargo delivery, so not only medical equipment, but also other sorts of goods. And then drones have been extensively used for population surveillance, including for temperature scanning with thermal cameras coupled to drones. So drones have really been a platform that has been widely used, and this has triggered a number of reflections within our team at PRIO. And in the article that I mentioned before, and that I will link up to in the chat, we provide vast evidence of these three main fixes. So one dynamic that we observed, and this is something that I would be very interested in discussing with you, has to do with the acceleration of regulatory processes. So we've heard in the previous presentation about the situation in Sweden, about how there are still some legal issues that are related with with the integration of drones in the civilian airspace, and we've seen in several countries, in the US, in France, in Italy, in Portugal, etc. We've seen an acceleration of the regulatory process that enables the use of drones in the civilian airspace. So in some cases, we've seen temporary permits of use of drones. In other cases, we've seen a number of actors trying to speed up the process by which drones are to be integrated in the civilian airspace. So this is something that we've witnessed and that we find particularly relevant. Another one has to do with public acceptance. So we know, all the ones of you that operate drones and that have been engaged with this, you know that we've seen kind of two kind of competing narratives about drones. So one that really emphasizes the drones for good narrative, like all this how drones can really be a contribution to a number of different areas in society, including crisis management, police operations, delivery of goods, humanitarian setups, etc. But there is also a kind of a counter narrative that really emphasizes the problems with surveillance, mass gathering of data, and also from the previous uses of or the original uses of drones some 15 years ago, the use of drones in kind of in military settings. Okay, and this means that drones have kind of a reputation that that is a little bit conflictual in a way, if we can put it like that. uh, and so the fast or deceleration of this regulatory process may have some impacts when it comes to public acceptance. And I think that the end users and practitioners that are interested in using drones should be aware of this. Another aspect that I would like to highlight has precisely to do with the issue of counter drone technology. So if we recognize that the presence of drones in civilian airspaces might potentially pose safety and security issues, then it would be very good to have an efficient response to it, a technological response. But this response today doesn't really exist yet. So kind of there are literally hundreds of counter drone technological solutions available in the market, but from our extensive field research with police units, military personnel, etc., and also other types of end users, it's widely acknowledged that counter drone technology does not offer a full answer to the full spectrum of potential safety and security problems that drones pose. So when we think about having more drones up in the air, we should perhaps keep in mind that we don't, at the moment, we still don't have a very efficient technological response to that. We can talk more about it afterwards. Another one has to do with the participation of drone gathered data in broader assemblages of data. What do I want to say with these complicated words? Basically, drones have been, during the COVID-19 pandemic, they have been gathered particular types of data that come out of their video feeds that come from geolocation data, also all the other kinds of data that come from, for example, from thermal cameras. And this has been crossed with data that comes from other origins, including this COVID-19 self-tracking apps, etc. And this creates what we in security studies call surveillance assemblages, where you gather data from different areas, and then they create a big surveillance infrastructure. And then the final point that I would like to call the attention to has to do with technological integration and the potential risk of the normalization of exceptionalism. So we've seen that when it comes, for example, with self-tracking apps, we've seen that in some cases, the data that has been gathered by these apps has been used for purposes that go beyond just the mere control of the epidemic. We've seen in Singapore, for example, how this data has been used by the police, and we know from history and from many other cases that once data is available, we really run the risk of mission creep and having those data used for other purposes. And I think that's all of you and all of us that deal with drones, both in an operational setting but also as an object of study, need to be aware of that these dynamics often take place. I know that we are running out of time. I just wanted to very briefly put up here this graph that illustrates precisely the surveillance assemblages that I was talking about and how this happened with the COVID-19 pandemic. So kind of you see all sorts of data sources that contribute to the creation of this assemblage. And so I will just leave the slide there for discussion. There are a number of societal impacts, when we make the decisions about adopting a particular technology into society. In the case of drones, there are this issue with public acceptance, this turn to techno-solutionism and kind of and the governance of problems, based on data and technology, causes some problems that we should be aware of. And then there is this issue of the potential normalization of exceptionalism. The logic that when we are in a crisis scenario, things happen at a quicker pace, and then when we are over the crisis, we don't go back to the place where we were before. So it would be very interesting to see kind of how, in a post-pandemic world, what kind of impact this has had on the use of drones in the civilian airspace.